I love Granblue Fantasy Relink. This game has thoroughly devoured my life for the past few weeks. I've completed the main story, leveled my main party up to level 100, and seen every post-game quest there is available. To say the least, I can't get enough of this game. And apparently neither can you guys, as it's killing it on Steam and PlayStation right now. If you've watched my review or demo preview, you know that I've been eating this game up from the second I got my hands on it. But today, I simply want to gush about my favorite parts of Relink and why I think you'll love this game too. And big thanks to Games once again for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate all your support of the channel. I genuinely love this game and got to say whatever I wanted in this video, so this has been the perfect collaboration. If you haven't picked up Granblue Fantasy Relink already, it's available now for PC, PS4, and PS5. There's also a free demo available if you want to give it a try. I'll leave links for you to check out in the description below. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the set pieces. Now, going into this game, I knew it was going to be kind of linear and quest-based, but I did not expect it to be as set piece oriented as it was. But that's not a bad thing at all because some of these set pieces are absolutely epic. And when I say set pieces, think of something like Uncharted. Not quite as crazy as Uncharted, but there were some times where I was genuinely on the edge of my seat like, wow, this is really incredible stuff. And it's not just boss battles, although there are some incredible boss battles that are pretty much set pieces, like the opening battle. So the opening part of the game where you get to control your characters, there's a giant dragon that attacks your airship and you have to fight it off before things really get going. It's the perfect way to kick off the game, in my opinion. Then you have this section where you're exploring these like desert ruins and things collapse and you're kind of sliding down these sand dunes. It's really incredible. There's also a massive Titan-like enemy, and obviously you can't just run up and hit it. It doesn't work like that. So you have to think of clever ways to take it down. And it's everything from knocking it down, climbing it, destroying batteries on its back, things like that. It gets absolutely incredible. Not to mention some unexpected turret sections, which maybe you would thinking, I don't want to do a turret section in a JRPG, but this little scenario gets absolutely insane as your airship's getting attacked and you have to fight off oncoming airships and then you board other ships and take them down, jump back onto yours before it's too late. It's incredible. And what I found amazing is pretty much every chapter seemed to have its own set piece with unique gameplay, even up until the final boss and the absolute final chapter in the post game that I won't spoil here. It was just surprising every time they came up, and there were a lot of times where something was happening. I was like, oh, please let me control this thing, or please let this happen. And pretty much every single time I was able to do that, and I just had a big smile on my face every single time. All right, the next thing that I love, and I think you will as well, are the characters. So when you start the game, you really only have 7 playable characters. It's kind of the core main party. But then as the game goes on, you'll slowly unlock new characters. You have, this other roster of characters that you can choose from. You can pick and choose which characters you want. And in a way, it felt like a reward. At the beginning, like I said, you have 7 characters, and that's kind of plenty to get used to and try to figure out, like, okay, which one of these do I like? They're all really varied. And then it just felt really fun to get a brand new character, test them out for a few quests, and see if you like them. But what was really incredible to me is that while each character has the same basic attack setup, you have a light attack, a strong attack, 4 slots where you can set up special abilities, everyone plays so incredibly different. Now, when I first played the demo, I really gravitated towards Lancelot. I'm a guy that likes fast characters, so Lancelot with its dual daggers was right up my alley. I loved the fact that he could kind of close with a big kind of like sprint attack. He had a ranged attack, and then he had this attack where he could like jump up into the air and smash down and freeze enemies with this big ice splash. It was awesome. But then when I got to the full game, I got to try out Fairy, who wasn't in the demo, and she ended up being my absolute favorite. She has a whip for her basic attack, but then she can summon these like ghostly animals that attack on their own, but then you also need them to make other attacks more powerful. So in a way, it's this balance of always trying to keep them on the field, but not use them too much so you can have your other abilities do more damage. She was just so much fun. And then Rackham was probably the character from Range that I love the most. He has this gun and he's always constantly trying to build up this heat meter that once filled up does big damage, and his charge attacks charge even faster if his heat meter is high. So it's really imperative to keep his heat meter high. I tried out Rosetta as well. She was really unique. Like, she has this moveset where she drops these little like flower buds, and as you attack, they kind of slowly level up and do more things in the midst of combat. So she was really, really unique. And then of course you have someone like Io that is your traditional caster. She can throw out like magic bolts, and then she has ice, lightning, etc. spells that do different things. She has a big stun, which is really important later in the game. So I don't know, if you like casters and you like being able to stun bosses to kind of get in more damage, Io's super fun. And there's also a secret character that you unlock when the game is over over, and I wouldn't dare spoil it, but that's just more incentive for you guys to beat the game, because this character that you unlock is so much fun. No matter which character you decide to play with, there's one that will fit your style. With 20 playable characters, there's got to be one in there that you will enjoy. Next, I just love the visuals in this game. This has got to be one of the best looking JRPGs of recent memory. And I think what helps is that it has a distinct art style. Like, of course, you could just easily dismiss it as anime, but that doesn't do it justice. It is really, truly unique. You look at it and go, oh yeah, that's Granblue Fantasy Relink. Like, I know what that game is. Like, every time you look at it, you know it's not something else. And even the character portraits, like the 2D art in the menus, really, really unique. It's kind of got that painterly watercolor style that I just absolutely love. And every time I got to try out a new character, they just have so much detail in their outfits, the way they move, their attacks. Not to mention, each of the monsters also has tons of details, like characters like the little goblins, the way they move and, you know, prepare attacks and scream and try to taunt you. And then all the big enemies, how they power up moves. Not to mention just the world. The world is so gorgeous. I loved walking around the bigger open environments, not to mention the two main hub towns. And in those two hub towns, there's so much to find. Not only just collecting, you know, side quests, upgrading your equipment, things like that, but you can find items all over the place that you will want to use to upgrade your equipment. So it's really worth it to explore. And then also there's just chests all over the place as well. And slowly through the game, you'll get new keys that will unlock the higher level chests. So it's really worth walking around, exploring, talking to people, and seeing if you can find all the chests that are hidden throughout the town. Not to mention, I played this on PlayStation 5 and it just ran at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second at all times. It never hitched for me. It never crashed. I never had any problems. I've seen people that have had problems, but like I said, I've put in nearly 50 hours into the game and I have not had any issues with the game's performance at all. And I mentioned this in my review, but I love the simple elegance of the menus. You open them up and there's just this beautiful sky background that goes with the theme of the game. You can almost always see some character portrait that looks gorgeous. It's really easy to navigate. You never get lost. Sometimes I find myself fiddling around in games menus, like not knowing, where do I find this thing? Where is this? But within like an hour or so, I just knew where everything was. And I just love the menus in this game, which is a weird thing to say, like who loves being in menus? But in a game like this, where you're constantly upgrading your characters, equipping new equipment, setting different skills, it's important to have good menus, and thankfully Granblue Fantasy Relink does. And speaking of the world, I want to dive into that a little bit deeper here. I mentioned before the main hub towns, and they're just incredible. And what's really cool is, you know, if you've seen the earlier footage of the game, like way back in the day, they've pretty much kept the design almost exactly as it was, which I applaud them for. A lot of times if you reboot a game, or if you change things up or develop it in a different way, you change it up. But no, it's pretty much the same town, at least Folka is. And then of course we got this big town, Seed Hollow. It's way bigger. Absolutely fun to explore. There's so much detail. I'm a town person. I love exploring towns. I love all the little details of like, ooh, there's this shop. Like, what's this shop owner's life like? Like, why are these little decorative pieces here? I love that. So I loved going into every little corner, seeing everything each town had to offer, and it was just fantastic. And there's really two big open areas in the game. And the first one is that grassy fields area where you're taking down all the goblins, one of the more opening missions. And it's just so much fun to go around, explore, break boxes, get those shrouded treasures, to do those little mini games to get even more treasure. I don't know, it was just so much fun to take in the beauty that all these levels had to offer. And there's a desert level that's really big, and there's sort of exploration-ish missions later that you'll unlock where you have to walk around to all corners of it, see what it has to offer. I just love checking that all out, especially the desert level, because it has these sort of like wind portal things that'll push you and make you run a lot faster. You're sort of essentially like surfing on the sand, which was really fun. So it made exploring that level all the more enjoyable. And this world is just super unique, these sort of floating islands in the sky, which I found really cool. And there's a lot of imagery with your airship. You're flying around to these different islands, and in the cutscenes, it just looks so cool. Now, I will say it would have been awesome to be able to have more exploration in the game. This world is just begging to be explored. I wish I could have gone into some of these houses on that grassy fields level, or just been able to control the airship myself. That would have been cool. But nonetheless, it's absolutely beautiful. But maybe in this potential sequel, they will let us explore a little bit more. That'd be awesome. Next, let's talk about the music. Man, I just could not get enough of this music. It's just pure magic. Now, it's much more melodic versus mood setting. Like, I found myself humming these tunes often, not only while playing the game, but even outside the game. And like I said in my review, that's surely a sign of strong music if you find yourself humming it when you're not even playing the game. And that happened quite a bit. And what I find great is everything is appropriate for whatever's happening, whether you're in town and it's got these like jolly town themes, or, maybe it's more calm and chill as you're walking down these windswept grassy hills levels, or maybe more epic for boss fights or intense moments, and then some more uplifting ones, like something that feels more like the main theme of the game. And well, it's not. There's a song that I played at the beginning of this video that I loved. It feels like it is the main theme of the game or of Granblue Fantasy as a whole, but it's not, but it still feels absolutely epic and one of my favorite songs in the whole game. I would say it's definitely up there with some of the best JRPG soundtracks of this generation, or honestly, really any game of recent memory. Now, one thing I want to talk about that I didn't touch on much in my review, and that is the online co-op. What I love is that it's super easy to connect and start playing, and you can do, quick quests if you just want those tickets that you can turn in for other items, or if you want to do a specific quest, it's so easy to just log in and start playing with other people. And honestly, what it feels like, it's sort of reminiscent of like old school MMO raids, especially how the enemies put those markers on the ground that you need to avoid. Those feel very MMO-ish, and honestly, it feels better here because you have full control of your characters. It's big action combat, not like hitting buttons or semi-turn-based. And honestly, it's better to play with people on some of the more difficult boss fights because you can sort of time up stuns when they're about to do a big attack and chain skybound arts better so your AI party aren't doing it at the wrong time, or you don't have the wrong character initiating it so you can do more damage. Not to mention there's really great netcode, if that's even the appropriate term here. My internet is insanely slow, so the fact that I could connect and play without any issues is pretty incredible. And as I mentioned before, this just reminds me of the good old days of raiding in MMOs, getting on chat, hanging out with some friends, doing some combat. But like I said, here it's much more kinetic, so much more fun, and it just brings back a lot of those nostalgic memories that were really special to me of raiding in MMOs back in the day. So it's really cool to be able to rekindle that experience in a way here with Relink. And last but certainly not least, what I think are the stars of the show are the boss battles. There are so many in this game, and each one brings a unique challenge. Now, to start off, you play something like the Quakedile that, it'll just rush right at you, so you have to avoid its big rush attacks. Maybe it'll have some rocks that fly around that you have to dodge. So it kind of helps you get used to the boss battles in this game, but then things get way more elaborate. Maybe you find yourself fighting the big ice wolf where you need to get behind some sort of object or you're pretty much done. I love that. It felt really, really hectic, and especially in the higher level ones where it has those big like ice things shooting at you, man, it gets really, really hectic. And honestly, one of my favorite mechanics was in the flame worm fight. At one point, it charges up this attack, and there are 3 weak points around the battle arena, and you need to run around and break them all, or it does a big attack, and again, you're pretty much done. So this idea that you need to like break your party up and everybody go attack one spot, I don't know, I just thought that was so much fun. And then there are some gimmick fights. I mentioned the Titan earlier where you have to knock it down and then attack on its back, which is really cool. And there are some ones that get really crazy at the end of the game, but like I said before, don't want to spoil those, so I'll leave those for you to figure out on your own. And honestly, it was just so much fun to go into each new chapter of the main story campaign to see what new mechanics each boss would have. And then even after in the post game, there are bosses that aren't in the main story campaign. So it was really cool to see how those would come together, or maybe even throwing 2 or 3 of these bosses at a time. Those get absolutely nuts. So if you really want a good challenge, definitely go deep into the post game because some of those boss fights get insane. And then one that I really liked too were any bosses that flew, like griffins, for example, because not every character has the ability to attack them in the air. So you have to fight them a little bit differently, or even try different characters that you normally wouldn't. So I really enjoyed fighting the bosses that flew. It just kind of presented a unique challenge. Now, if any of those 7 points hit home with you and you want to check out Granblue Fantasy Relink, if you haven't already, definitely check out the link in the description or the pinned comment below. And thanks once again to Cygames for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. Now, if you want to see a more holistic overview of what the game has to offer and how long it takes to complete the main story campaign, be sure to check out my full review right here. And special thanks to Reset Switch, Tyler Kuzawa, and the Miyazaki Man for supporting me over on Patreon. To get exclusive videos and other cool perks, consider supporting me over on patreon.com/thegamingshelf. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.